Weezing-Galar has just risen to OU status in a historic tier shift. And he's not the only one. Scizor and Deoxys-Speed are back up to OU as well, and so is Celuredge. And Tinkaton, who only rose up to OU recently, has dropped down once again. And most shockingly of all, Cuptonio has fallen from Ubers to ZU. How the hell did this happen? And we cover all of these significant shifts in the July tier changes. Now, Galarian Weezing has been on the radar of competitive players for a while, but it is still surprising to see it rise to OU proper. That's a significant amount of usage for Galarian Weezing, but what is this guy doing in OU in the first place? Other than its excellent 120 base defense, Galarian Weezing has pretty unimpressive stats and seemingly some hurdles to overcome for competitive viability. With limited healing options, a poor base HP stat, and a tendency to get chipped down, Galarian Weezing had better make up for all these shortcomings in other areas to justify its existence on competitive teams. But it actually has managed to be a desirable choice in competitive for quite a while now. Galarian Weezing has the ability Neutralizing Gas, which is an absolutely amazing ability, nullifying the effects of all other abilities while your Weezing is on the field. And this has a lot of amazing applications in Gen 9 OU. The most noteworthy is that Galarian Weezing is one of the few Pokemon in the game able to remove hazards against Gholdengo, because Gholdengo has the ability Good as Gold, which usually blocks Defog from taking effect. Gholdengo is also immune to Rapid Spin, but Galarian Weezing nullifies the effect of Good as Gold and can freely defog against Gholdengo. And compared to other Pokemon that are able to do this, Galarian Weezing is a little bit more desirable. There is Holucha, who can defog in the face of Gholdengo with its Mold Breaker, but Galarian Weezing, thanks to its high defense and good typing, is a bit more useful in the general metagame. Galarian Weezing happens to be an incredible defensive answer to Zamazenta, an extremely common Pokemon. Galarian Weezing has a ×4 fighting resistance and even a resistance to Dark, which covers the popular option of Crunch on Zamazenta. Galarian Weezing devastates Zamazenta with its super effective Strange Steam or Will-O-Wisp, both of which completely ruin Zamazenta's life, and they can scarcely do much to you at all. So that is added value to running Galarian Weezing beyond just as a reliable defogger. Galarian Weezing is also excellent into Iron Valiant, as it has a fairy resistance and a fighting resistance, and is able to stomach a lot of Iron Valiant's different coverage options well enough. And Galarian Weezing also threatens Iron Valiant with Lethal Force. Those are two pretty significant Pokemon to be able to answer in the Gen 9 metagame. Low Kicks has also been on the rise in Generation 9 OU, a fantastic neutral physical attacker thanks to its ability Tinted Lens, which effectively removes resistances and allows it to do big neutral damage to everything, with options like Stab First Impression, U-Turn, Throat Chop, and Sucker Punch. But Galarian Weezing has Neutralizing Gas to completely nullify the effect of Tinted Lens, so Galarian Weezing gets to keep its resistances, and it crucially resists all of Low Kicks' attacking types. I actually thought Low Kicks would rise up to OU because it's been very popular, but funnily enough, the hardest Low Kicks counter has risen up instead, which perhaps is a fitting development. That's even more value gained from Neutralizing Gas, nullifying Tinted Lens, but there's even more application for this, actually, because it is really significant against defensive teams to nullify their powerful defensive abilities. I mean, Gholdengo is one. You can defog and Will-O-Wisp against Gholdengo freely. There's also Garganacl, who has the ability Purifying Salt, making it immune to status. So Galarian Weezing can freely Will-O-Wisp or Toxic against Garganacl. That has immense value, and it is not something most Pokemon can do. Galarian Weezing also completely nullifies Gliscor's Poison Heal. Gliscor deliberately poisons itself to activate Poison Heal. But now, Poison Heal is disabled, and Gliscor will be taking poison damage as normal if Galarian Weezing is on the field. What's interesting is that Gliscor's Toxic Poison actually ticks down in the same way that it usually does, but it's just in the background. So if Gliscor has been on the field for 5 turns, healing with Poison Heal, the toxic stacks are still happening, it's just not applying the damage to Gliscor. But if Galarian Weezing suddenly switches in, Gliscor will suddenly take a bunch of damage from all the toxic stacks that have been accruing all this time. So that's a really fun way to get one over on Gliscor, who has been one of the most consistent and difficult to deal with defensive powerhouses of Gen 9 so far. And Galarian Weezing is also able to temporarily nullify Regenerator, the ability that heals you on switch out. While Galarian Weezing is on the field, it is going to prevent that healing from taking place against key targets like Alomomola and Galarian Slowking. So Galarian Weezing is no longer just a niche Pokemon in the eyes of the competitive community. All of those incredible advantages are just useful enough for this to be a proper OU Pokemon now. It's probably not something a lot of people expected, but it makes sense that Galarian Weezing has risen and risen because of all of the problems it solves. It's been such an issue in Gen 9, the whole hazard game surrounding Goldengo, since Goldengo is so excellent at blocking hazards. So it makes a lot of sense that Galarian Weezing has risen up to solve that problem, and with all the other stuff it does, it is just a great Pokemon to run in general, and I think it's wonderful to see this development. That is really fantastic. To many of you, it probably doesn't sound like a surprise to see that Scizor is ranked OU at the present moment, but this kind of is a surprise. Scizor has struggled in Gen 9 to return to its former glory as a competitive titan of many generations in the past. Scizor was unfortunately nerfed, losing its option of Roost, and has had a lot of general power creep to contend with, so it is interesting to see it actually properly rise back up in the July tier shift, but I think it does make sense. In the current metagame, priority just feels really good and really important, and Scizor's Choice Band boosted Bullet Punch, or even regular old Bullet Punch, perhaps with a Swords Dance boost if you can find one, is really good against a lot of the top offensive threats of the metagame right now, like Iron Valiant, Dragapult, Darkrai, Dragonite if you've broken multi-scale. And most notably of all, Kyurem. Kyurem is infamous for being pretty hard to deal with because of its set variety and all of its incredible offensive options. It has Freeze Dry to hit water types and destroy Dondozo. It has Dragon Dance for physical damage. It has Loaded Dice, Icicle Spear, Scale Shot. It can even do physical Terra with Terra Blast and gain coverage you couldn't have anticipated, but Scizor is actually a pretty damn reliable answer to Kyurem in a world where Kyurem is famously difficult to answer. Because Scizor can stomach most of its usual attacking options, it shrugs off Freeze Dry, Ice Beam, Icicle Spear, and it takes Earth Power pretty well. It's only neutral. And then it threatens Kyurem with a lethal Bullet Punch. So Scizor has always actually been a little bit underrated in Gen 9 OU, I think. Never enough to be properly OU by usage, but still decent with its priority and other great options it's always had, like U-turn, knockoff, etc. But I think that what has increased its usage this time around is the fact that it has all those advantages, plus it is a pretty nice check to Kyurem in a world where Kyurem is rising more and more and is generally kind of difficult to deal with. People are trying to find solutions, and Scizor is a good solution, while also providing your team with a very solid priority attacker and wall breaker. I think Choice Band Scizor is good. There's also been Swords Dance Scizor, which unfortunately can't use Rest anymore, but that doesn't detract from it enough to prevent its rise here. I'm sure that many competitive old heads are delighted to see Scizor return back to its former glory at last. Whether this will maintain in the next tier shift, I'm not sure, but for now, Scizor is OU once again. Now, I was a bit surprised to see that Celuredge is the first BL Pokemon in quite a while to rise up to OU. Before Okidogi, before Garchomp, it was Celuredge who beat all of them out. I have to admit that I didn't necessarily expect this, but I've also been noticing a trend of Celuredge usage increasing, so maybe I'm the stupid one this whole time. Celuredge was once OU before and it fell off. It does have desirable traits. It's a Fire Ghost type physical attacker with solid stats. Cool options like the signature move Bitter Blade, which is a fantastic fire-type physical attack with a draining effect, and an above-average 90 power. Celuredge has Shadow Sneak, a crucial priority option, in a world where priority is very important and, in fact, central to the metagame. And it even more recently gained the new stab option of Poltergeist on the Ghost side. Celuredge has two good options for abilities: Weak Armor, which grants a speed boost if hit by a physical attack at the cost of lowering defense. A very good aggressive ability that makes up for Celuredge's low speed. And then there's Flash Fire, granting fire immunity and 1.5x damage if hit by a fire move. Flash Fire was used in the past alongside Terra types that are weak to fire, like Terra Steel or Terra Grass or even Terra Bug, because there's newfound defensive advantages to those typings and their weakness to fire is erased by Flash Fire. This allows Celuredge nice setup opportunities, with Bulk Up, Bitterblade and Taunt being an interesting way to go. In the current meta though, it seems Weak Armor is the much more popular ability by usage for its fantastic application on offensive teams. I have seen a lot of Celuredge on Sticky Web teams, which makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Sticky Web lowers the speed of enemies, and Celuredge is a very threatening Pokemon, but one of its worst traits is its speed. So Celuredge works really well on Sticky Web teams. Celuredge is also filling a little bit of a gap left by the ban of Roaring Moon. Sun teams are eager for a physical sweeper to fill that gap, and Celuredge has seen some use on Sun teams as well. And interestingly, on Sun teams, not only is it getting value from the Sun boosting its fire type damage, but also gets the option of Solar Blade, which is pretty good because it is able to counteract common Sun counter matchups like Dondozo and Alomomola. Solar Blade dealing significant damage to them, especially with Terra Grass, if you want to commit to that. I suppose that the team's Celuredge fits well on the rise in general. There's still Araquanid Webs. Araquanid didn't drop, it's still OU. Web teams are very good, and Celuredge fits well on those. Celuredge is also fitting well on Sun teams, which have been good for all of Gen 9, and have just lost one of their biggest threats. Celuredge is filling that gap there, and it's generally pretty nice. It's commonly paired with Hatterene, who is able to magic bounce away Stealth Rock. If you had for good hazard control, Celuredge is also a desirable choice, because it is pretty fantastic when there's no Stealth Rock up. At full health with the Focus Sash and the Weak Armor, it is awkward, because you don't want to attack into it and activate Weak Armor, but you don't want to let it set up either. So, great with Hatterene, great with Great Tusk as well, as are many Pokemon. I think this is a cool development. I think Celuredge is fun. I quite enjoy using it. And now that I think about it, the past couple months, I have seen multiple high-performing teams using Celuredge as their breaker of choice, because it just fits well with the current pace of the metagame, and it fits on multiple popular archetypes right now. So I think that this does make sense. I do wish I got at least one prediction right, though. Am I ever correct? Low Kicks didn't rise. Okidogi and Garchomp didn't rise, but Celuredge did. I personally did not predict this. But that's okay. Celuredge has defeated me with pure skill and ability. What can be done? What can be said? And the final Pokemon that has risen up to OU in the latest tier changes is Deoxys-Speed, a former Ubers ranked Pokemon who fell down to UU and is now back up to OU status. This is an interesting one. When this guy first got unbanned, it was extremely popular because of its obviously elite level speed, incredible move pool, excellence as a Stealth Rock and Spike setter early game, its access to Light Screen and Reflect were incredible, utility like Taunt and Knockoff, and even offensive tools with its incredibly vast attacking move. But unfortunately it dropped off, I think just because being a mono psychic type in current year is very difficult, especially in a metagame dominated by King Gambit. Deoxys-Speed is vulnerable to Sucker Punch. Starting the game off with a Stealth Rock setter is also not as fantastic of a game plan as it used to be in old gens with the rise of boots and such. You'd rather run sturdier hazard setters generally in this generation, or if you want a more aggressive hazard setter, you're probably going for a Webs lead or something like Glamora or Samurott Hisui, who do that job a bit better. So Deoxys-Speed has had a little bit of a tough existence, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around why it might be rising in usage, and I'm thinking maybe it's because of the rise of new defensive Pokemon. Pecharunt has been popular lately, and Pecharunt is threatened by Deoxys-Speed's Psycho Boost. We just spoke about Weezing-Galar rising. Maybe Deoxys-Speed is a bit of an adaptation to the Weezing-Galar epidemic, as Psycho Boost also threatens that for massive damage. There's a general rise in these bulky poison types, so maybe a big Psycho Boost from Deoxys-Speed is good, actually. And there have always been benefits to Deoxys-Speed. I mean, the incredible base speed of this guy can literally outrun Landorus Therian and +1 speed Great Tusk if it clicks Rapid Spin as well, and that's huge. It's incredible speed control and, offensive prowess combined into one. And this set that I found on a team built by the Sergio235, I think is actually kind of brilliant. It's Terra Electric Deoxys-Speed, and Terra Electric allows Thunderbolt to hit a lot of good damage rolls, KOing King Gambit after a nasty plot with some help from Stealth Rock, KOing Primarina more consistently post hazards, and also allowing you to be neutral to Sucker Punch. And one of the crucial calcs is that this Deoxys-Speed, if it Terra Electrics, is actually going to live a King Gambit with 5 Supreme Overlord boosts and Sucker Punch. So that's pretty huge. Cross-section of defense and offense here on the Deoxys-Speed, and it turns it into a little bit of a mini Regieleki, doesn't it, with powerful electric damage. Also running Nasty Plant for setup, and just the classic Bolt Beam combo, as well as Psycho Boost, who does hit a lot of common Pokemon right now, and also Zamazenta. The cyclical nature of Gen 9's meta is quite interesting, isn't it? Because Deoxys-Speed fell in the past, but maybe it's rising up again because of other things rising up that it happens to match up well against, and then it now has those positive matchups and all of the fantastic traits it used to have. Even though it has some shortcomings in Gen 9, it is desirable right now. I don't know if that will hold. We'll wait until the next tier shift in 3 months, but for right now, Deoxys-Speed is OU again. And now we come to the bad news, the fall of Tinkaton. This guy just rose up a couple months ago, and now it's back down again. It had its time in the sun, I suppose. I can't quite put my finger on why this one happened. I feel like Tinkaton is still very good. We talked about it last time, but the guy has a Fairy Steel typing, very good type combo, and despite poor stats, that fantastic defensive typing plus all of your incredible utility and the ability to pickpocket the way it combos with Air Balloon turns this into a really fantastic and easy to fit defensive utility Pokemon that is able to check King Gambit well with its typing and Encore, break a little bit with the high power Gigaton Hammer, spread T-Wave, and pretty reliably set Stealth Rock. It also has Mold Breaker as another option to set Stealth Rock even in the face of Hatterene, who actually has been pretty damn popular recently, so this also feels pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I think Tinkaton still has all these advantages in OU. I don't think it's particularly falling off a cliff in viability or anything based on any metagame shifts. It might not love the rise of Celuredge, who threatens it super effectively, but I feel like that's hardly a huge concern for Tinkaton. Perhaps last time around it just barely made the cut, and now it's just barely missed the cut. It could be that because Roaring Moon was banned, Tinkaton has less reason to be used. Tinkaton was actually a pretty nice response to Roaring Moon with its Air Balloon for ground immunity and general good typing against everything else it has, and the ability to cripple Roaring Moon with Thunder Wave, ruin its life with Encore. Other than that though, I feel like Tinkaton is still good, and maybe it just barely didn't make the cut. And an absolutely shocking sight to any seasoned competitive Pokemon player is seeing that both Blissey and Serperior, former competitive legends, have fallen down all the way to the low tier of RU. Is quite unbelievable. I think Blissey has been to RU this generation in the past, but Blissey has been on a bit of a roller coaster in Gen 9, hasn't it? Sometimes it's OU by usage because as a special wall it is a hard counter to various things, as it's always been. But Blissey has been suffering significantly this generation from losing the option of Toxic and also losing the option of Teleport that it gained in Gen 8 to be able to pivot out. So Blissey is pretty much just a big defensive blob that sits there and doesn't do a lot. Sometimes that can be good on hard stall teams, but it's pretty difficult to fit Blissey on teams, not only in OU but in UU as well. It's very slow for Gen 9. Even in UU it can't keep up, unbelievably. And then of course there's Serperior, once a top 3 Pokemon in the whole game back in Gen 6 with its contrary Leaf Storm combo, and excellent in Gen 7 as well. Falling to RU is a little bit surprising for this, but for Serperior, the lack of hidden power in the games since Gen 8 has been a huge problem. Yes, it can use Terra Blast for that coverage it so desperately needs, but that is a significant commitment. Serperior has been called a Terra Hog. You kind of have to terrestrialize with your Serperior to achieve much with it. Hidden power was a crucial part of this Pokemon's existence in the past, gaining fire coverage or ice coverage or ground coverage to be able to hit the things that can stomach Leaf Storm. Without that, and with such a commitment tied to that, it has suffered. It can be a fantastic Pokemon to spend Terra on because of how well it ramps with Leaf Storm and the fantastic combination of a glare and good coverage, but I think that there are more worthwhile Pokemon that get more out of Terra and are more generally useful when you don't Terra on them. Not only in OU, but in UU. In the UU metagame, I think Serperior is suffering from the presence of top Pokemon like Low Kicks and formerly Scizor. That's not a problem anymore, but it was when the tier shift happened. It's a little bit tragic to see such competitive legends fall from grace to this extent. I had high hopes for Serperior when it was first announced to be returning to Gen 9. I thought it'd be a great Terra abuser. In practice, though, it has kind of sucked. And I can't believe it's not even keeping up with the UU power level in Gen 9. Unbelievable. And now it's time for speculation. In the next one, who do we think will rise up? I promise you folks, in the next one, Low Kicks will finally do it. I feel like it's insane that it hasn't already. The guy is really good. It has Tinted Lens, such spammable attacks, such incredible consistency, and this is a world where we love priority. It's got first impression that is boosted by Tinted Lens. It has U-turn knockoff. This Pokemon is amazing. It's an incredibly consistent breaker by definition, because it has no real switch-ins. Yes, it doesn't love the rise of Weezing-Galar, but you can knock off Weezing-Galar. You can U-turn out against Weezing-Galar. Inherently, the worst matchups of this Pokemon are not going to be that bad for it, because it has knockoff and U-turn. I feel like Low Kicks is well overdue for rising up to OU. Maybe it's just not popular on the ladder, but on tournaments, this guy is everywhere and it has such a great performance. I feel like it's gotta happen. It's gotta happen. I am no longer so sure about Okidogi. I feel like I have not seen Okidogi in a while. I think it's still pretty good, but I don't know about rising to OU. Garchomp, I'm also not sure. Maybe it could happen. 3 months is a long time. It's a lot of time for things to change. So we'll see if Garchomp returns to its former glory. Other than that, though, I don't know if anything else is really on my radar. I think Tinkaton could return back to OU, but other than that, those are my predictions. Low Kicks will rise up, and maybe Garchomp, perhaps not, but maybe. What do you think, though, folks? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.